All right. So welcome, Mamo. Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
So we're here today for It's Bright Thursday. It's also the Feast of St. George, which is celebrated. I know he is beloved in Russia and in Greece, and I'm sure in Ethiopia as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's the Feast of St. George, a big celebration across the world. And we want to wish a happy name day to anybody named George or Georgia.
Yep.
And also, we're here to learn, again, in our tradition, this is Bright Thursday, we're doing another Christ is Risen coffee break. So I hope everybody has their coffee or their tea or their beverage of choice. And today we're going to talk to Mamo and learn about where he's from. So Mamo, you disappeared from the video for a second.
Okay, sorry.
I know you'll be back. I trust that. So while you're doing that, I'm going to open up the map of Ethiopia, and you can tell us at least audibly where you're from. But we still don't see your video. Is that?
Yeah, I think what happened was my battery was low on the iPad, so I'm going to change it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Sure, if you can plug it in or whatever you need to do. So okay. Everyone, while that's getting done, we're going to orient ourselves over here. Here's the continent of Africa, and Ethiopia is, let's see. Okay. All right, we're getting our tech organized here. So Mamo, you should be on the new one. Okay. So Mamo's still connecting to audio. All right, so that's coming on. So, okay, here is Africa. And there's Ethiopia on the eastern side of Africa, and this is called the Horn of Africa. So, Mamo, do you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, sorry.
And okay, it's okay. What are you able to be on video with either the iPad or the other?
Yeah, I'm trying to sign up on my cell phone.
Okay. Well, we could use the audio of your cell phone and just see you on the iPad if you want to have that, because you had that set up so nicely. But I don't know. Oh, maybe your battery's not going to be with you.
Yeah, the battery. Yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
No, it's okay. This is what happens with live broadcasting. I'm sure everybody's just happy to have another minute to get their coffee ready. So, okay. I'm going to stop the share for a minute, and we'll go ahead. Okay. So while Mamo's doing that, we're going to talk about reviewing the Christ is Risens that we learned from other days. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with you, anybody who is viewing now, while Mamo gets his new device set up on Zoom. And we're going to go over to, I'm going to share my screen so we can look at the last couple days here. Okay, so this was our first Monday, Bright Monday. We did Serbian with Dushka, and she taught us that, in the church, they will use Slavonic, which is Christos Voskrese, Voistino Voskrese, it's actually missing right here, Voskrese. And then in Serbian, though, the language of the people that's spoken out of the church, they'll say Christos Vaskrese. So the accent is on the first syllable, and that's really hard for me to learn. So Christos Vaskrese and Vaistino Vaskrese. Christos Vaskrese. Vaistino Vaskrese. Okay, so that was Monday. I hope you had a chance to say that along with me. So now we're going to do Arabic, which we learned from Nicholas. Al-Masiacham, Hakankam. Al-Masiacham, Hakankam. Al-Masiacham, Hakankam. Okay. And then yesterday with Carmen, we learned about traditions from Romania, and we learned how to say Christ is risen in Romanian. Hristos a înviat, adevărat a înviat. Hristos a înviat, adevărat a înviat. So should we slow that down a little bit? Hristos a înviat, adevărat a înviat. Okay, so those are the languages of the week. Let me check in on Mamo. How are you doing, Mamo? You're muted right now. I don't know if your new device hooked up. Okay.
Okay, now.
How's it going? I can hear you now.
Okay. But you can't see me, right?
Not yet. Are you? Do you want me to do the share video? It's in the lower left corner of the Zoom window, I think, if you have that. I can do it, but I think it's better if you do it when you're ready.
Okay.
You have enough juice, battery power?
I'm trying to do it. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, you could go ahead and disable the video so I can sign up.
Oh, well, I'll start the video so we can see you, right? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
So I sent a message, ask to start video. There you go. All right, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see if we can, yeah, so you don't have the window directly behind you, otherwise we won't be able to see you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there, oh, that's really nice. And if you can lift it up a little bit, that's good too. But okay, awesome. We're so glad that you're able to come back. So I'm gonna go ahead and share again, like we planned, the map of Ethiopia, and you can tell us a little bit more about the geography.
Oh, well, sure. Ethiopia is located in the eastern part of Africa. It's neighbors of Somalia, Kenya, Sudan, and Eritrea. It's had a population of 110 million.
Wow.
It's one of the oldest country in the world. I mean, the second country after Armenia to, accept Jesus and Christianity. So we have close to 32,000 churches in Ethiopia. So everywhere you go, especially the northern part, like from the capital where I am, it's right in the middle, for going further north to Tigray, Eritrea, Wollo, Gondar, and all those places, they all have different monasteries or churches, which have been built, like some of them like 1,000 years ago, some of them 800 years ago. So we don't have like a, in Ethiopia, you can't complain and say, well, I can't go to church because there's any church close to my house. I mean, there would always be a church. And like you said earlier today, you talk about St. George, and our church was St. George, and that's where yeah. So St. George is very, very revered in Ethiopia and loved, and all the saints. So
yes. Oh, that's wonderful. So as Mamo is saying, he's from the capital, which is Addis Ababa, right?
That's right.
Addis Ababa.
Which means new flower. Addis means new. Ababa means flower.
Okay.
So.
Wow. And we were saying too before we started that we have several families in our parish that are also from Eritrea, right?
That's right.
And how do you pronounce it?
Eritrea.
Okay, Eritrea.
Yeah.
And you have do they have a different language from in Ethiopia?
Yeah, well, in Ethiopia we got like 82 different ethnic groups. So I mean, there is one official language, which is Amharic, which is what we speak. But in Tigray and, which is the province next to Eritrea, and in Eritrea, they speak Tigrinya. But Yeah, and even there, there are different regions of Eritrea and Tigray where they might speak a little bit different dialect, but the main language in Eritrea is Tigrinya, and there are a lot of people who also speak Italian because Eritrea has been colonized by Italy for 60 years, and
Wow.
there's an Italian influence in Eritrea. It's the city, Asmara is a very modern city. And it has a great coastline. It's too bad, they became independent in 1991, and we lost the coastline, so we're landlocked.
So they have the tourism industry.
Oh, they do, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, but the thing about Ethiopia, which is something really great, is even though we have so many, between, I would say close to 90-something% of Ethiopians are believers. You're either Christian or Muslim, but you would hardly find an Ethiopian, maybe nowadays in the capital city, because people are very, westernized and all that. But before that, back when I grew up, like in the 60s, church is something you can't avoid, and you have to go, and we would go. We would love to go. Both my parents were Orthodox Christians, and we can trace back 700, 800 years back and know that they were all Orthodox Christians. So cradle orthodoxy is great, but sometimes also, but I learned, at St. John a lot more about orthodoxy, because here we learn about theology 101. In Ethiopia, we do learn a lot, but at the same time, I told you earlier, in Ethiopia, even though Amharic as the official language, the church language is called Ge'ez. And it's a language which used to be spoken like in the 6th century. And after the 7th century, it kind of died out in terms of, you don't speak it, but it was still in the church. So all the Bibles that we have in Ethiopia and Eritrea, they're all written in Ge'ez. And when we came to the US, obviously, in order to accommodate people who don't speak, who don't understand, who can't read Ge'ez, they've come up with the Amharic version and the English version.
Okay, so you're saying that you didn't really grow up with an Amharic Bible?
No, we didn't. I mean, which was unheard of. Well, there were some, like, the last emperor actually introduced that. But before that, I mean, wherever you go, it doesn't matter which province of Ethiopia you came, if you want to be a priest, or serve in the church, you have to learn their language. Mm-hmm. And it's only a church language,
Right. So. Well, it's very similar to, what Dushka was saying on Monday about Serbian, and Slavonic is the church language. Serbian is spoken outside. Same thing. For, I think in Greece, they speak modern Greek, but there's another type of Greek, an older form of Greek in the church. So it's really something common to many cultures that is, we're not as used to that in English, because of course, Orthodoxy in English is a much shorter history at this point. Yeah. And so we don't have that same disconnect of like not really knowing those words, because even if you're speaking Elizabethan English, we know it pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and thank you for that introduction about the languages. So we're going to go and learn how to say Christ is risen in Amharic. So that was the Romanian, the Arabic, the Serbian, and now we have Amharic. And Mamo was very gracious to write this out for me also in your alphabet here. Which is really neat to see. Thank you so much for doing that.
Exactly. So, I mean, in Amharic, we would say Christos tanestual.
Christos tanestual.
Yeah. And you would respond, Bergit tanestual.
Okay, I think this needs to be fixed. Okay, Bergit tanestual.
And I've heard it also being said, Unet tanestual. So there's a difference between ergit and unet. Ergit is like to be sure, like it's like saying he is risen indeed, versus truly he's risen. The word Unet means the truth. So definitely that would be something, and I've seen it in different publications where they've used both, but Unet Tenaswa would be the more appropriate one.
So what I'm kind of hearing when you say baunat, there's sort of like a ba, and then there's kind of an oo there, baunat.
Yeah, you see the sound ba and then w, na, t. So when you say it is baunat, when you say it a little bit faster, but otherwise, like you said, you said it right, you said ba, w, na, t.
Okay, so it's like kind of like like that.
Yeah.
Baunat.
I mean, most of us would say this, but then the Giz version is a little bit different, but
Okay.
you can tell, so they're close.
So let's practice this a few times,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about Giz a little bit more. So for Tanestwal, where's the accent? Is it Tanestwal or Tanestwal or Tanestwal?
It's you say like Tenestwal.
Tanestwal.
Yeah.
Tanestwal. Okay.
The reason I emphasize this just to tell you how it's to say te, ne, si, toi, le. So but when you say it a little bit faster, it becomes like Tenestwal.
Tanestwal. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the accent's kind of on the end. It's like you're kind of rushing through everything to get to the end and rest. Okay. Tanestwal.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bauna Tanestwal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tenestwal. Yeah.
So let's do this one and this one, because that's kind of what you're leaning towards. This is probably going to be the more correct one.
Yeah.
Okay. Christos, is it Christos with a K or is it H? Like Christos. Oh, Christos Tanestwal.
Yeah.
Okay. Christos Tanestwal.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bauna Tanestwal.
Good.
Okay, awesome. Can you say it one more time for us?
Christos Tanestwal, Baunet Tanestwal.
Okay, awesome. So if I say Christos Tanestwal,
I would say Baunet Tanestwal.
Okay, awesome. We'll practice again at the very end. So then we have some information about Giz, and this you don't have. We didn't write down the greeting and response, but you wrote down the whole hymn, because they would sing it. This is how it would be sung in church.
Exactly, but like I said, Giz is a liturgical language in the church in Ethiopia and Eritrea. So most people, if you say Christos Nasau Mutan, and they might understand what you're trying to say, but they would say, well, that's not Amharic. And you can tell right away. It's either, Giz is close to Tigrinya, the way it sounds, but like I said, both languages derived from Giz.
Okay.
And so then that's why, Christ is risen from the dead. We would say, Christos Tanestwan, Tensa Mutan, Mote, Wakadula Mote, Laile Wusta Makaber, Wahaber Hiwat Zalalem Erefte. So it might sound Arabic, a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. The script is incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. And the thing, the second part is more like the back and forth between the priest and the lady. So the priest would say, Christos Tansal Mutan, and we would say, Ba'abi Hai Wasultan. So it says, Christ is risen from the dead, we would say, with great power and authority. And then he would say, Asarola Satan. He means he put the devils in shackles. And then you would say, Agazola Adam. He means he set Adam free. And then he would say salam, which is peace. The Arabic word is salam, and this one going forward from now onward. Kona means it's so. So you'd say Fasah wa salam, which means peace and happiness.
That's beautiful. So do they say that at the beginning of a service or the end of a service, or is there like a special moment?
Yeah, this one, you know, they would say almost in the end. And so,
That's so cool.
yeah.
Great. So, how long have you been in the States? How many years?
I came here in 1980, so that was almost 40. Well, come June, it will be 40 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've lived in LA. I've lived in DC for about 3.5 years in both. I lived in San Jose, California, and I went to San Jose State. I'm a graduate from there in accounting, and that's what I did for most of my career. And then we moved up here in 1996. So we've been here 24 years.
Wow.
And Ron was born here in 1997, so a year later. So I think this is the longest we've ever lived, you know, and it's been really nice. And obviously coming from Ethiopia, where going to church, like, you know, if I want to go back a little bit, and in Ethiopia, like being Orthodox is common. You know, if somebody says I'm a Christian, that means he's Orthodox. That means he goes to church on Sundays, or she goes to church on fasting. We have like 180 days of fasting, and the priest and the nuns would be like 252 days. And, you know, beside the Wednesdays and Fridays, even the Great Lent is 55 days instead of 40. Just like we have, you know, the cheese fair, you know, that 1 week. But we add the cheese fair in Ethiopia. The way Ethiopian Orthodoxy is very connected to the Old Testament, that means to the Jewish tradition. We have a lot of Jewish tradition in Ethiopian church. And sometimes you'd be surprised. You go to the old monasteries in the north, and you would see the Star of David. You know, yeah, and you know, we're not, you know, there are a Jewish population. They used to be, and most of them have immigrated to Israel now. But beside that, I mean, it's just like, so in school, your classmate would be Orthodox Christian, and they would fast. So fasting until the age of 13, they're a little bit lenient because you're young. Maybe you eat breakfast, light breakfast. But for my parents, and when we turned 13, you have to fast. And even if you say, I don't want to fast, you have no other choice when it comes to food, because nobody would cook meat. And surprisingly, during Great Lent, not only you don't, no dancing, no music on the radio, they play church songs. So, I mean, whether you believe or not, I mean, you're kind of confined to that. And even though it seems like 55 days of fasting seems long, because everybody else does it, it becomes common. So even your teacher, sometimes they would say, oh, are you fasting? And they say, yeah, maybe, you know, because you might be doing exercise in the afternoon in school, at PE, and you get tired and things like that. But, you know, Monday through Friday, is the service starts at noon and ends at 2:30. And that's where my mom and my dad would eat at 3 o'clock, one meal a day.
Oh, wow.
That's it. And then on Saturdays, the service starts at 6 a.m. and goes until 9 o'clock. So our church service is early in the morning, and people would walk. You're not supposed to drive. This was way back in the 60s. So, and even if you have the car, which my dad and mom had, but they would walk to church. That means you would walk with everybody in the neighborhood, which was something, a very communal, you know, lifestyle. And if you go outside the capital city, and people live literally by the rules and regulation and the Bible itself. I mean, if you go to a certain part of Ethiopia and it got late and you don't have a place to stay, you can knock on anybody's door. This was like 40, 50 years ago, I'm talking about. And you would say, look, I'm traveling from Addis, I'm traveling, so it's late for me, so I have no place to stay. They'll let you in.
Wow.
Not only they would let you in, they would serve whatever they had. And these are sometimes extremely poor farmers. And for me, it is, a blessing that I was born in a country like that. I know people, when they talk about Ethiopia, the famine, and all this, but still people are very resolute, and they're resolute because they have extreme faith in God.
Yes.
And there's always that hope. And in countries like ours, where if you take away hope, people are dead. I mean, seriously. And you would not believe, like, I remember growing up, if you have a test, you would go to church and pray. And sometimes my mom would come along with me and pray for me, so that I could pass the test. So anything, like you apply for a job, and it's common to see icons in government office, and nobody would complain. And to me, that was really great. So
Yeah.
we to the US, it's a totally different world. I mean, especially now in Oregon, where it's very different, religion. I look at, even in today's coronavirus, people would go more towards God and praying, rather. There's a lot of dependency on science and technology, but you have to combine it,
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And also we know Ethiopia has the best runners in the world,
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely. If one makes it, that gives you incentive. Somebody who used to be your classmate, all of a sudden he made this kind of money, and they'll come home. I mean, the one thing I admire about the athletes is they always spend the money back home. Whatever the winning is. I remember this kid who was like 18, first international race he was running in Dubai, and they had a $250,000 US if you break the record. And then for winning, there was another $150,000.
Wow.
He got gold. I mean, to be coming from a farming family and then making $400,000 in Ethiopia, which is really great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so, congratulations. I know you have very hardworking athletes. So before we go, that was so great to learn about kind of your experience of seeing. I know that when I've looked at which countries have the highest population of Orthodox, like per capita Orthodox, Ethiopia has the highest of, so the most homogenous as far as faithful Orthodox Christians. But can you tell us any traditions specifically around Pascha that you loved growing up?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was just actually talking to my brother the other day, and there were a number of things I forgot about it, but the service starts at 9 o'clock in the evening, and it goes until 3 in the morning. There's 6-hour service. So when we were very young, definitely would stay home, and I'm the 8th child in a family of 12. So I had 9 sisters and 2 brothers. And so my dad and my mom and the older ones would go to church, and there would be a nanny or a domestic or, employee working in the house, working as a babysitter for us, that. So when they come, it doesn't matter if it's 3:30 in the morning, they would wake us up and say, let's go and eat and break the fast. And we eat doro wet. Doro wet is like chicken stew with lots of eggs. And it's a meal that we make for special occasions only, because to make one doro wet, it takes about 3 hours. So, and a family like ours, like I said, we're 12, and then my parents, that's 14, and we have 4 people working in the house. That, we're talking about 18 people have to eat. And my dad would be the first. Obviously, he would bless the food. And if we have a priest coming along, the priest would bless the food. My dad would start. And the way we sat at the table is by age. So it would be my dad first, my elder sisters, and it goes back. So my brother and I would be way at the bottom. And then the food is served by age also. So the little ones will get the food last, because in Ethiopia, respecting elders was something that a lot of people put highly, and the thing that surprised me the most was like at that time, after feeding all these people, my mom, throughout this time, she wouldn't eat until not only us, even the domestic helpers are finished eating. That's when she eats. And
Wow.
she was an angel. Without a doubt. And the next day, you don't go to a grocery store and buy chicken or whatever. In Ethiopia, we do, goat, lamb, or chicken live. You buy live ones, bring them home, and it's cooked in the house. And usually, just like Nicholas Hafez was talking, and I was surprised because how close our culture is. And he was talking about there were 12 families living in the building, and they would go to each house. We do the same thing.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it is. And it goes through the whole week. So one day would be in our house, the next day would be our next door neighbor. And if you're well off, definitely you have to share whatever you have. So you help out the neighborhoods, So it is a great feast. Without a doubt.
Wow. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love the image of you all around the table by age. Yeah.
Like on Friday.
Go ahead.
Okay. On Friday, we usually we have Forgiveness Sunday in our church at St. John.
Mm-hmm.
We do it on a Friday, and usually during that time there would be a movie the next day on Saturday. We would watch a movie about Jesus, his resurrection, and all that. And you would go to the priest and say, "Father, I've sinned." It's like a confession, but one thing I like about St. John is the fact that you would ask for forgiveness from each individual parishioner, which I have never seen it. We don't do it back home. So it's usually you asking, talking to the priest, and the priest would tell you, to do prostration, like maybe 10, depending on your age. If you're very young, he would say 5, 10. The older you are, he would give you more. So that's what I wanted to share.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. We've got to talk more. We've got to do more of these.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully next year we could add more people, who can share.
So Mamo, let's practice one more time before we go. So Christos Tanestwal.
Yeah, Christos Tanestwal. That's right.
Christos Tanestwal. And then Beunet Tanestwal.
Yeah, Beunet Tanestwal.
Beunet Tanestwal. Okay. So Christos Tanestwal.
Beunet Tanestwal.
Awesome. All right. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.
You do the same. Have a blessed day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.